Town meeting is like the sex act. If there's no completion, you may try it, but pretty soon you get bored and go home. You see, the key is there's a decision. There are lots of decisions throughout a town meeting in which policy changes. It has nothing to do with recommendation or listening to people for the hell of it. It's to govern yourself and reach a decision. So you go into a town meeting and your tax rate is X. You come out and it's Y. You've raised your taxes or lowered them. You've bought a town truck or you've decided not to buy a town truck, and so on. Vermont can send a message to the rest of the United States that you can govern locally. Nationally, it's almost a given now that we can. Oh, they're cute, they're nice, but you couldn't really do that. Well, in fact, indeed, you can, and we do. I published with Susan Clark a book about town meeting, about deliberation in town meeting, and reforms for town meeting, called All Those in Favor, which I thought was a neat title. It was Susan's idea, and she's the force behind it, but we're both worried that the town meeting tradition is suffering, and that we needed to write a popular book, a readable book. It's an argument for town meeting in citizens' terms. The New England town and its town meeting is really a cultural phenomenon. And children grow up in a Vermont town watching their parents go off to town meeting, arguing about it the next day, applauding this citizen, bemoaning another citizen. It's all very real. So by the time you're in high school, you know exactly what a town meeting is and pretty much how to behave in it, because New Englanders generally are pretty good at deliberation. They know about the rules, and I found when newcomers come and I take them to a town meeting, they have two emotions. One is often boredom, to think, wow, is this all there is? And it's true, it is. And others are always impressed by the rules of order. Even scholars of deliberative democracy don't realize the extent to which this is not shouting and yelling and screaming and anything like that. It's very ordered. The best way to think about it is that in Vermont, the town itself is a legislative body. So anyone living in the town is a legislator, and they come to town meetings at least once a year, or other special town meetings that they themselves can call. So it's not representative democracy at all. No one represents you. You're the legislator. Say if a town of 1,500 voters, there's 1,500 legislators. And like the sessions of Congress in the House and Senate, not everybody comes to every session. We all come to a town hall. You're checked in at the door. They make sure you're a citizen, even though everybody knows you are. It's really kind of fun. They'll say Frank Bryan, and I'll say yes, and they'll check me off. It's quite formal at that point, even though everyone knows everyone else. We sit down, there's an agenda. We can affect, the citizens, the legislators can affect that agenda if we want to. Usually it's what we call the select men, the select persons of the town, which are the executive body of the town. They carry out the laws for the town. So we go through the agenda just like any legislature would. The question is called. It's conducted under strict rules of order too. It's not what you see on television. There's no yelling out, there's no interrupting, and if that happens, people are called to account very, very quickly indeed. So it's a rule-structured legislative session featuring common, ordinary citizens like you and me. It takes a new way of looking at politics that really brings the left and the right together. The right fears big government, the left fears big business. So what's the commonality? It's big. And Susan and I feel that if Americans had that experience of seeing how small works best for democracy, it would change everything. But of course, in order to keep town meeting going, in order to save it, you have to empower citizens. If all American citizens went to town meetings, lived in small towns, went to town meetings regularly, the presidential elections of this year would be phenomenally better. We wouldn't be sick of them already. There would be none of the unpleasantness and divisiveness. I think the fundamental challenge in the last almost 100 years, but certainly the last 50, is that Vermonters, like all Americans, got on this centralization model, that it just seemed to be that we needed to centralize power, whether it's in Washington or wherever. And so we did take away from the towns in Vermont, and it happened throughout New England, a lot of their ability to actually make decisions. And that's one of the great dangers, because people don't go to town meeting to see their neighbors and chat. They go to town meeting because their interests are at stake and they want to govern themselves and make a decision. Once you take that away, then slowly but surely the attendance seems to wane, because it's just another get-together. There are the politicians that advertise they're going to hold a town hall meeting, which in fact they're going to do is hold a meeting of their supporters, they hope, where they'll come and tell them what they're going to do for them. And that doesn't even come close to a town meeting. In other words, they're just using town meeting and calling it town because they want to imply it's going to be a conversation, you see. And it's all going to be very nice, like they do back in New England. So that's one case. And that's the most egregious model, it would seem to me. And the other is just a general reference to public hearings, governmental public hearings as a town meeting. Why do we insist on calling these meetings, which are not town meetings? Why do we insist on doing that? Because the national consciousness is linked to that tradition, and it's a dream we all have. And we've got it in Vermont. Common, ordinary citizens collectively can deliberate and reach decisions that count and matter on really important issues that affect their lives. That the real democracy that began with the Greeks and we've argued about ever since does in fact work and work well in places like Vermont, and in fact can easily be transferable to other places in the United States if people have the wisdom and the will to do it.